Good afternoon, Frank. Welcome to the podcast, Everyman BJJ Show, Sunday afternoon, last day of February 28th, 2021. The end is nigh for the pandemic, I think. So, what's going on?
Hi, Noah. Good afternoon, everybody. I hope everyone's having a great Sunday. Final day of February. This is Black History Month, and I just want to wish everybody who, I don't know if you wish a happy Black History Month, but I want to say that, I'm from inner city Baltimore, grew up in an interracial family. I always say interracial before it was cool. So I was thinking this yesterday while I was driving. I'm like, I don't have heroes and idols. I've never wanted to trade places with anyone, but the people that I admired and respected most the early years of my life they happened to be African-American, usually, like Martin Luther King Jr. Arthur Ashe was a favorite of mine. And then Frederick Douglass. If you've never read Frederick Douglass's autobiography, you should read it. It's amazing. It's incredible. And then his arc, how he went from slave to freedom to ambassador to just a great speaker, one of the most eloquent speakers from the heart, just the embodiment of bravery. So Black History Month that was, Black people, African Americans, especially those formative years, those first 14 years were instrumental in raising me. I'm very grateful. Turn into jiu-jitsu, I don't like controversy. I don't know why. I'm a former journalist, worked in newsroom, worked in TV, worked at Ultimate Fighting Championship. I do not like controversy because the older I get, the more I want to adhere to that axiom, speak no evil, right? Because inevitably, when we start speaking out against people, lashing out against them, like ESPN style, like Stephen A. on ESPN style, and you just start blasting everybody and you wind up sounding holier than thou, and inevitably you wind up coming off as a hypocrite because, like you and I have said here many times on the show, we're all John Jones. Tiger Woods just had his car accident. We're all Tiger Woods, right? The rise and fall. And in that sense, we're all inevitably going to be hypocrites because we've all got stains and blemishes and defeats and setbacks and boneheaded things and low points and desperate points where we did stupid stuff where we were to rewind it and watch it. We're like, thank God nobody was there with a camera all the times I misstepped in my life or you misstepped, Noah. So it makes me feel a little bit, I think we're all hypocrites. And then especially when you get in front of a microphone and you start talking about like what happened between Gordan Ryan and Andre Galvão the other night at Fight to Win, which has been, that video has been broadcasted. Probably millions of people are going to watch that thing. And of course, Gordan Ryan wound up slapping Galvão, I think twice. And inevitably, given the nature of our podcast, Everyman BJJ, we talk about the value of jiu-jitsu, the lessons on the mat, off the mat. Inevitably, as much as I like to steer clear of this, I'm not sure about my good friend Noah, but as much as I like to steer clear from it, here we are. We can't, this is a vortex. We can't avoid this one. This is one that we have to talk about. So we're going to talk about it.
Have at it, Frank. You want to wade into these waters. There's a lot of alligators. Careful.
Okay. So these are my thoughts. So I was thinking about this a little this morning. I actually went to train jiu-jitsu at Drysdale Jiu-Jitsu. I drove cross town. So excited. I rolled 35 minutes yesterday. Okay, that's like I took 2020 off, right? I'm in Utah. I'm hibernated. I'm in a cave. I'm writing. I'm Mr. Minimalist. I'm sitting there just trying to be present and in my little Zen mode, and my senses, right? I was in a lot of quietude and solitude there in Utah. Didn't get to train jiu-jitsu. I got to do like some park jiu-jitsu. I got to teach some people in the park a couple times, which was cool. People showed up, but by and large, no jiu-jitsu 2020. So now 2021, last couple weeks, I've been in there, 2 times a week, hopefully get up to 3, 4, 5 times a week. And so drove there across town today, 9 a.m. It's supposed to be a 10 a.m. open mat. I'm excited. I had some great rolls yesterday. Nobody's there. there's like a couple other cars in the parking lot. I don't know if they're getting ready to change the schedule in March. You know, I love you, Robert. But anyway, that was anticlimactic because I was looking forward to get my jiu-jitsu train on this morning, and that didn't happen. I left at 10:15 a.m. Had to settle for some biceps. Anyway, I'm sitting there in the gym, and I was doing some shadow boxing at Drysdale's. When I was at Drysdale's waiting for someone to show, I was in the parking lot. It's 31 degrees. I'm in the parking lot warming up, like 20 degrees, shadow boxing, footwork. And I'm also kind of thinking about the situation. I'm like, Noah's going to ask me about it. What are the takeaways? What are your thoughts? And what I think at the end of the day, it's kind of like when you work with a client, right? If you're teaching someone privates, jujitsu, or nutrition, whatever you're teaching them, mind jitsu, the first core question is, what are your goals? What would a successful outcome look like? Right? That's the most important thing, because it's hard to measure something. Everybody has different goals. Everybody has a different idea of what is success, or what is success for a certain project, like for a 3-month period. What's a successful outcome for that? And so when you take a look and you bring that same lens to Gordan Ryan and Andre Galvão, and of course, Gordan Ryan, but first I want to preface this because I've trained with Andre Galvão before here in Las Vegas. I like Andre Galvão. I think Andre Galvão knows who I am. I like Gordan Ryan. I was in Finland when Gordan Ryan won the ADCC Absolute, and he was just amazing. A double gold. And I got to talk to Gordan Ryan's mom for like 5 minutes, which was awesome. And I saw a more humble side of Gordan Ryan. And I think, given, I did a TEDx talk on big egos, and having worked in the, and trained in the combat sports now for almost 35 years, I understand that person. I understand Conor's personality, Nate Diaz, all these people think are troubled personalities, Mike Tyson, Gordan Ryan. They're not mysterious to me. I've trained with them. I've interviewed them. I've spent a lot of time around them. I've spent a lot of time, picking apart fighters' psyches. Gordan Ryan, I like him. I respect him. He's phenomenal at what he does. He's only 25. But he's not mysterious to me in what he's doing, right? He's just a very charismatic, smart, cerebral person on and off the mats. But he's clearly been stirring this pot. If you're on Instagram, he's clearly been stirring this pot. He's clearly been picking a fight. He's been, I guess you would call it like scalping. He's been trying to scalp Galvão, like snipe him on Instagram and insult him and goad him into a super fight. And I can only imagine that part of the reason, because, I think Gordan's lost 3 times in the last, however many years, 6, 7 years. I mean, three or four times that I know of. No gi, right? Overwhelmingly, Gordan is phenomenal without the gi. I mean, going into the gi, when you start thinking about this is the question, and this is what I think is going on in Gordan's run. Okay, Gordan wants to be the conqueror of conquerors. He wants to be known as the best of all time. He's already said he wants to be, multi-millionaire, tens of millions of dollars. He's got his vision board. And what I think he's thinking is, okay, I am the greatest. I'm going to tell, just like Ali did, just like Conor McGregor did. I'll tell everyone I'm the greatest. I'm going to make all this money. But to leave no doubt, I need to kind of scalp some people that are the greatest. And Andre Galvão, when you start naming, you start saying, who are the greatest grapplers in terms of, submission wrestling, no-gi grappling, jiu-jitsu, no-gi without the gi and no-gi. Let's just take gi and no-gi. Who are the greatest names that come to mind? Roger Gracie, overwhelmingly most of that success in the gi, right? But Roger Gracie's there. You have to mention that name. You have Andre Galvão. When you start adding up medals, gi and no-gi, maybe nobody has more medals and more titles than Andre Galvão. Shanji Ribeiro, you have to mention gi and no-gi, prolific, phenomenal jiu-jitsu, gi and no-gi, one of the most accomplished ever. Buchecha has to be in that conversation. We cannot leave out Marcelo Garcia. He belongs in that conversation. So, some people, if you go back really old school Brazilian jiu-jitsu, A lot of people will say Hicks and Gracie. You can't leave Hicks and Gracie out of that because of what he did in his era, not now, but what he did in his era, right? So these are the names. When you look at a Mount Rushmore, if Mount Rushmore had, say, 7 or 8 names on it, these are the kind of names. People don't think of Gordan Ryan as in that ilk yet because he's only 25 and he hasn't done it as long. So his quickest way to convince people is I'm the greatest is to get someone like a Galvão, right? A guy who's clearly, if you were to name the top 4 highest achievers in our sport, gi and no gi, if you were to say top 4 and you just count medals, you just go by championships, right? Proven on the record, Andre Galvão's got to be there. And so it's perfect for Gordan Ryan, who's so obsessed with, when you think of his end goal, right? When you think of Gordan Ryan's end goals, right now, 2 of his big end goals, right? He's thinking of the end is you got to call me the greatest. I'm the GOAT, right? He's saying it from the rooftops, and I want to make a lot of money doing this. He's already said, I want to put $20 million in the next however many years. And he probably will make a lot more than that if he can stay healthy and keep winning at the rate that he does. But clearly, 2 of Gordan Ryan's top goals from the outside seem to be call me the greatest and make a lot of money, millions of dollars, okay? And when you think of Andre Galvão, I'm imagining, I'm reading between the lines, haven't talked to him in quite a while, but I imagine his thing is kind of like, I've already done all this. I don't have anything to prove. So even when he's being sniped and Gordon's trying to pick a fight with him, Galvão's probably thinking, hey, I'm close to 37. I'm either 37 or I'm close to 37. He's in that neighborhood. I've done it all. And unless there's a lot of money, he asked for $1 million on it. Unless there's a lot of money in it, it doesn't really interest me. I've already done all these things. I can't kind of add to it by beating you. So when you look at Galvão's end goal right now, I'm basing this on what he said on Instagram. It's, hey, pay me a lot of money. That's a nice end goal for me at this point. I've already won all the titles I need to win. I'm near the end of my career. My end goal would be you pay me a lot of money. Okay. Now let's put this in perspective now. We're going to tie this in, these end goals, kind of motivations of these guys with what happened last night. That's how we're going to prism it. And I'm not judging either guy harshly because I like both of them. And I've been, I'll say this, Noah. Am I freezing up there a little bit?
No, you're fine. No, you're totally fine.
Okay. This is one thing. I was having dinner with a lawyer friend here in Las Vegas, a Canadian guy who got me over into China a couple years ago to do some seminars there, which was phenomenal. Beijing Sport University. We got to do some seminars there. So I got to reconnect with him yesterday, and we watched the video, right, of Gordan Ryan and Galvão backstage. The number one thing I would say, and Andre Galvão, I love you. I respect you. You're a legend of the sport. He's a gentleman, right? He is a gentleman in general. He's humble. He's relatively humble for his amount of success. He
is a servant of Jesus Christ.
He's a cool guy.
Yes.
He's a cool guy, okay?
He turned that other cheek yesterday.
And he's the guy who gave Israel Adesanya his purple belt and brought Israel Adesanya to tears. And he's got that team, and Atos is undisputedly, I mean, when you mention the best teams in the world, you've got to mention Atos. They're right there. They won the IBJJF a lot. Okay? So, gi and no gi. Now, one thing I'll say about Andre, that he made a mistake. He made a mistake. You do not walk up on another man and cut him off, make contact, and then push him. You do not do that. That is a mistake. And I think Andre, when the emotions come down, when he looks at that, that was a mistake. So I understand that, Gordan Ryan tried to shake his hand after Craig Jones tapped Ronaldo Jr. Right. And then I guess Andre refused his hand and maybe did an unpleasantry, maybe, I don't know, whatever, gave him the bird, whatever he did. Yeah. Then it continues somehow backstage. Gordan Ryan's walking back to the dressing room, and then Galvão kind of intercepts him, makes body contact, pushes him, and then the slap ensues. And I'm telling you, as a guy who was a reporter, I covered cops in courts. I was in the court a lot. I've covered death penalty trials. I've went into prison and interviewed. I've read the Nevada revised statutes on a lot of this stuff, the criminal statutes. I think a good lawyer could easily make a case that that slap was self-defense, given that you make contact and then you push a guy, the threat of that, like the surprise of that. I think Gordan Ryan, I'm saying I've been in these positions, Noah, so I'm not just speaking blindly. Unlike like Stephen A. or somebody on ESPN, I've been in street situations. I've been in confrontations like this. I've had guys shove me, not once, not twice. Like, I've been in that situation. I've seen those situations a lot. You cannot just roll up on a guy and surprise him and then give him a push, because it's very reasonable for Gordan Ryan to have presumed you're going to hit me. You're going to punch me. You're going to tackle me. You're going to pummel me because you're mad about things I've been posting. And that's not to forgive Gordan for instigating and stirring the pot. I'm not saying that was right. But the moment, I think that Andre, in my opinion, Andre underestimated Gordan Ryan, because to roll up on him and push him, I think maybe what he probably expected is Gordan Ryan would shrink and be like, hey, it's just the internet, whatever, like that Gordan Ryan, we kind of punked Gordan Ryan.
Right.
But Gordan Ryan was like, no, and we're talking, when we say a slap,
oh, he did
a heavy-handed slap, like a slap that might as well have been a punch. I mean, especially if it hit him around the ear or the jaw. I mean, that was one of those that would definitely get your attention,
Oh, so, yeah. He did it. He did a slap contest. He did really a full on. I watched the whole video, and I see, Gordan, he's coming right off the mat, right? Coming right out of the match.
I don't know if he was coming from cornering Craig Jones, or if he was coming from after his match. Either way, if he was coming from his match, then you're still kind of in that primal state too,
and even cornering too.
Yeah, I think Gordan Ryan was it as long as it wasn't staged. Okay, it did not look. You have to think, is this staged? Because there's potentially a lot of money if it is staged. You can certainly do well with pay-per-views. I mean, they could make millions possibly by staging something like this. So it does occur to you to think, is this staged? But the whole interactions between them feel so raw, so palpable, and even the smack is a hard smack. So it's like, if that's staged, then Galvão. I mean, the other thing is for that to be staged, Galvão would have to be willing to make himself look bad, because it doesn't. I love Andre. I felt sad for Andre watching it. I felt sad for Andre even watching later when they're backstage and Andre's pleading kind of like with Donaher, like, hey John, and he's. I felt sad for Andre, because I like him and I think he's a good guy. I think he's humble, and in some ways, this whole thing that Gordan's been instigating is making Andre look bad. And it clearly got under his skin. That was not good judgment. The only way you roll up on Gordan Ryan or anyone else, the only way you roll up on someone and you push them is if you're going to attack them. It's kind of like pulling out a gun. They say you don't pull out the gun just to bluff. If you pull out a gun, and I'm not advocating that anybody pulls out a gun, but in those rare instances, self-defense situations where if someone did pull out a gun, you cannot be blunt. You have to be ready, or don't pull that thing out, right? 99.999% of the time, you just don't pull it out. There's no justification to pull it out, right? But you don't roll up on a guy like that unless you're like ready to scrap. And I think he underestimated Gordan. Again, he didn't expect that Gordan would stand his ground and be so vociferous and so ferocious. And I think that then caught Andre, underestimated him, and that caught Andre off guard. And so while I would say, like, in terms of the methods that Gordan's using, instigating this online, I mean, this is the thing, though, and this is a very important thing for all of us to remember, okay? I've been in these situations, so I'm not pretending I'm better than either guy, because I've been in these situations. But when you look at it now, being more mature, right? When you get to a place where you're trying to be the warrior and the poet, the yin and the yang, right? Where you're not just the warrior, you're trying to have a code. You're trying to be a gentleman, where the gentle is just important as the man, right? The man part, the manhood part, but the gentle part, where both are so important. And when you look at that, you realize, and Viktor Frankl used to always talk about this in Man's Search for Meaning, you always have a choice. And Andre, I love Andre, but you always have a choice. When a guy's talking smack to you online, you don't have to respond. If you do respond, you can respond in a light manner. You could respond and say, Gordan, you're the best, whatever, you're phenomenal, much love to you, whatever, in your own way. You have choices. When you see the guy at the venue, right? They're both in Austin, Texas. You do not have to walk in his path. You do not have to walk and push him. You do not have to confront him. Even though Gordan's trying to pick a fight and he's trying to insult you, your legacy, confidence says, hey, Andre, your legacy is secure, man. You've got medals. Maybe nobody on the planet has more medals, gi and no gi, than Andre Galvão, right? I mean, so it's like just that confidence and that security in your own legacy. You don't have to take the bait. You don't have to, and so there's always a choice there. Even though Gordan is 25 and Gordan clearly relishes, just like Conor McGregor, the role of just ultimate conqueror. He just relishes like, I am the greatest thing ever, and I get it. And to meet Gordan's objectives, where Gordan wants to go, what he's doing fits where he wants to go. Now, the other question, though, and then I'm going to let you speak because I'm speaking a long time here, but the other key question then is for like Gordan, if I was somehow a coach to Gordan, or if I knew Gordan, or if I was a confidant or a close friend of him, a guy who's twice as old as Gordan, what might I say? I might say, like, hey, are there other goals we should have in there? Is being a gentleman important? Is being high character important? At what point does that become a primary goal? Now, I'm sure that if I trained with Gordan Ryan, or we have him on here, I'm sure just like Chael Sonnen, I would like him a lot. I'm sure he's respectful. I'm sure he's fun. I'm sure he's humble in his own ways. But at least publicly, to go where he wants to go and say he's the greatest ever. He makes all these millions. He gets involved in incidents like this so that people watch and plop over their money and pay money. He talks smack, great. He's excellent at it. But what else is important? Like, what else is a goal in terms of, like you and I talk about here on the podcast, in terms of your code, in terms of the example you set, in terms of life balance, in terms of peace of mind? Because the problem with these kind of incidents, even though I understand them, and even though I've been party to a couple of them in my life, okay, the problem is they can have a domino effect. Let's imagine, just like Chael Sonnen, I like Gordan Ryan a lot, but let's imagine he does a trip to Brazil. How might he be received in Brazil? Like you might have to have 10 bodyguards for Gordan right now in Brazil, right? There was a time, as Robert Drysdale told you and I, when you think about the example that this sets, there's a time when jiu-jitsu had a bad name, even in Brazil, even in the motherland. The Brazilian jiu-jitsu had a bad name because there was a thuggish element. There were schools that kind of behaved a little bit like gangs and were like, we're the best trained, we're the baddest, get out of the way. We don't want to go there. So the code, the example we set as martial artists, not just being about money, not just being the greatest, but the greatest and a lot of money at what price? At what price? What is compromised in terms of code, in terms of character? And I'm saying this the same way I would say it to myself, because much like Gordan, I was never as great in my achievements as Gordan, right? But I had that drive. I had that will to be dominant. I had the work ethic. I did. And I know what he's wrestling with. I know a lot of what he's wrestling with. The power that he wants, the place he wants to go. I get it. And I did a TEDx talk about it. But the other thing we have to ask ourselves is the character that we're sculpting along the way. That has to be primary. What is the character we're sculpting? Do we just say, hey, I'm the greatest and I made a lot of money, so the ends justify the means? Is that the mentality we're going to have as warriors? I'm the greatest. I'm going to prove it. I'm going to dominate. I'm going to collect scalps. I'm going to do whatever. And I don't care. And I make a lot of money and I don't care what anybody else says. I don't care about the example. Or do we have a higher consciousness and say, you know, the way that I carry myself matters. The way that my own peace of mind matters. And maybe some things are more important than money. Maybe some things is something else more important than being the GOAT and being the greatest. These are the things that I thought about along the lines of this incident. Noah, your thoughts?
Well, we've spent already half an hour you talking, which there's never any shortage of you having airtime, and I don't mind that. You know, I like the way you set things out, and I sit back and I listen to you because you know, I got advice from a lawyer once, and it's good to sit. You already know what you know in your head, so it's good to sit back and be quiet and suppress the need to speak whenever you can listen to others' ideas and get to know what they're thinking. So as long as you keep talking, I'm learning and I'm expanding my understanding of things. When the last time I was with Gordan at Henzo's, I was running into him because I had stopped by the academy to pick something up, and I saw him in passing, and I think he was headed out to the Far East. And I had been away from the academy out in Las Vegas, and I was just coming back, and I said, Gordan, would love to roll with you sometime. And, you know, just teach me some stuff that you know that would be appropriate for me at my level. I'm a blue belt. And he is as warm and kind of a person as you can get. So let's just view this, like you say, through certain lenses. And this is just chess. This is just Gordan playing up the heel aspect of in semi-professional jiu-jitsu, and you know, he's just making a name for himself that way. And you know, he's picking on someone who's kind of a darling or an angel of the community. You know, so it's bad boy versus good. You know, it's bad versus good, evil versus good. But let me just be clear. Gordan is not, the Gordan in reality is a wonderful person. And it looked like, the video looked like Andre played into Gordan's hands. You know, Gordan is thinking ahead strategically, not just off the mat or on the mat, but off the mat. And whenever Andre played into Gordan's hands with all of the baiting from social media, Gordan got the result he was looking for, which is more attention. You just spent half an hour of airtime talking about the guy, and many others. I looked on YouTube earlier. I was making lunch, and there's just tons of talk about these two guys right now. So it worked. It's a good play. It floated up. It floated up his the eyeballs onto the messaging. So it's like, what happens next? You know, will ADCC set up a super fight with these two if Galvão chooses to play? We'll see. I wanted to. So I don't have a big thought about that, other than it's entertainment to me. It's just entertainment to see this happening. I don't look at it from the lens of athletes are what do you want to call them? They're not sports idols in a sense of this is entertainment at this level. I don't idolize Gordan. I don't idolize Galvão. I do idolize some of the Gracies, though. Henzo, I I idolize him, and there's nothing wrong with saying he's an idol. What is an idol? But it's a representation of a prior experience you've had. It's import of positive emotions about a prior event. That's what an idol symbolizes, really. And I don't idolize either of these two gentlemen that we're talking about today. Because I don't have that, but I do look up to Henzo as far as idols. And, Henzo's always positive, always warm and open. Danaher, I've sat down with him. I've intruded in on him at Whole Foods, Columbus Circle, down there in the basement. There's another the man loves basements. Whole Foods is in a basement at Columbus Circle, at the Time Warner Center. So he goes there to grab a bite to eat. That's where you can find him because he doesn't cook. Well, formerly, now he's not. He's in Puerto Rico with those two guys.
If I was casting serial murderers in a movie like him, even when you watch him interact with Galvão, man, he's got, gosh, in that mind of his, you just wonder what's going on. He has an axe murderer little vibe. I'm sure he's a sweetheart of a guy too. His vibe is just, I mean, man, he's got a vibe about him that's just it's very different.
He is if you were to take Star Wars, he is the embodiment of some characters there. He's got those kind of characteristics where it's this mysterious guy. He always wearing the rash guards. That's probably the only clothes he has, and that's just not in his thing. And with him wearing a skull cap on, or something to keep his head warm. That's literally to keep his head warm. I heard another podcaster make a little snide remark about calling Danaher a zombie. And why are you wearing that? Well, it's cold in Texas right now, and these meeting spaces probably where they have that event, it's probably not very warm. And if you shave your head gets cold. It's comfortable to wear the little thing. Like right now, I turned the heater on earlier, and it's not even that cold here. But anyways. Danaher's a good person, but he has a lot of evil intentions on the mats, which are good, the good kind. Frank, do you want to talk about anything else about this, or can we move on? Is there any?
Yeah, I think there's a little more to flesh out here. So
okay, go ahead.
If we're talking end goals, the irony is with all of this happening, both guys will probably get what they want at this point. This is so all is well that ends well. As much as it's getting all of the, it sparks a lot of conversation and there's a lot of attention. Both guys get what they want. Gordan gets a chance to add Galvão to his list of people he's beaten and making the case of the greatest of all time. And
potentially.
And Galvão gets, I think Galvão is going to get his $1 million. Actually, I think that whether it's via a pay-per-view, I think the buzz is there. The jiu-jitsu community alone, if you did a pay-per-view, if the promoters did a fair split with Galvão and Ryan, I think the money's there as long as you have a fair promoter. I think even when you look in places like Russia or Abu Dhabi, some of the money that's there with some of the families, I just think somebody will pay that money and say, okay, this is not going to be a $10,000 super fight. So they're both going to get a lot of money. Gordan Ryan's going to get his crack at Galvão, and Galvão, win or lose, is going to probably get his 7 figures, probably the best payday of his life, irony. So probably in the end, well worth the slap. But then the question then for me will be, I do think that we'll see a match between them because I think the money will be too much. I think there'll be too much. There's too much money on the table now at this point, even if Galvão didn't want to really fight, Ryan. Maybe he doesn't like the matchup at this point in his career. Ryan's a little bigger. Ryan's more in his prime. Even if Andre thought, there's not a lot for me to gain, but now there's just so much money that it makes sense. So then the question then becomes, under what rule set, right? Or you do sort of the standard ADC super fight, a 10-minute super fight. Galvão is known as more at the highest levels. I'm not saying in the gym and whatever, but at the very highest levels, he's known more as a guy who wins via points. Gordan Ryan is known more of a finisher. He has a very high rate of finish. And then the question becomes, even if Andre beat Gordan 2-0 or whatever, 4-0, I don't know. I just don't know that this match. This is what I wanted to say. A match between them, in my opinion, should almost be like a kumite. It should just be one guy, not even EBI rules where one guy starts in the back, like just a pure. It just goes until somebody either gets too tired or gets submitted. Like that's a real way to decide this. First of all, in my opinion, this would be a kumite. Okay. Secondly, in my opinion, given the bad blood there, I would rather see it under MMA rules. Like I'm much more interested in watching these guys fight under MMA rules in an octagon than I am in watching them do jiu-jitsu, because when things get this personal, it's almost like jiu-jitsu doesn't quite have what a fight has. It just doesn't. It falls well short of guys hitting each other, or elbowing or kicking or kneeing or really so.
Yeah, but that's not how they made their legend, though.
Yeah, that's me though. I'm just saying.
I know.
That's what I would be more interested in seeing, because there's something extra that gets to come to the table, something extra, something even more primal that gets to come to the table. And again, in Gordan Ryan's defense, okay, Gordan Ryan was not trying to be like to Galvão. From what I saw before all this, he was not like, hey, meet me in the parking lot, right? It was just a, hey, face me and submission grappling rules, whatever, you're scared. That's what he was saying. He was not like, let's take it to the parking lot. And so it wasn't like he was looking for this. He was instigating, trying to get a jiu-jitsu match. He wasn't like saying, hey, I'll kick your butt anywhere, anytime, any place. Let's go to the parking lot. He wasn't doing that. So, it's not like he was trying to do that. Everything that unfolded, Gordan wasn't trying to get it to that point. Furthermore, when you hold an event, whoever holds those fight to wins, this was predictable. And they should have had security. This was very predictable. You don't have to be a genius. There should have been security there to keep them apart. It's very convenient. It's very interesting that there's nobody around to break it up. Nobody. I mean, that was pathetic, by the way. That was pathetic.
Hey, Frank, come on.
Yeah.
They did have security there. It was just slow in getting there. Gabby showed up.
Pathetic.
Sorry. I mean, the security came. It was just running late. She came. She came. She could have just. She literally could have just like, you two stop and bash their heads together.
Yeah.
She's huge. She's huge.
Nobody. Not many people coming to break it. I just thought it was like, come on, like really.
No, Gabby Garcia showed up to break up the fight, man. I mean, I am not kidding you. Break the glass. Break the glass. Bring out Gabby. I think the winner.
Hey, by the way, just to show people, I've trained with Gabby too. How about that,
dude? I think whoever the winner is they're fed to Gabby.
Okay, well,
I think that if Gordan wins, then he gets served to Gabby. She's a physical specimen.
My final thoughts on this and wrapping it up is, and you said it, I want to make clear, I like both of these guys. I genuinely do. I think I'd like dinner, lunch, training. I respect both of them. It just so happens that the public loves this thing where there's one loud person, Ali, and then Frazier's quiet, or a loud Connor, quiet, humble Aldo. It loves this kind of thing. Two different races too. I'm not getting in the race thing. I believe in human race.
It's not about race. It's not about race.
Yeah, but the public eats this stuff up. It eats up people of two different races. One's loud, one's quiet. It eats it up, and then the public wants to plop their money. It's very predictable. It's very easy for people to contrive the stage. So here we go again. It's unfortunate that the public just won't dial in just to see the matchup. You know, it's always got to be some extra, you know, some dramatic theater, and then the public is interested. So in any event, I like Gordan, I like Andre. Hopefully they'll settle it, and I hope that it's a kumite if they do. Or I know you're not for that, but even MMA, I would love to see it. I would pay to watch it. Moving on, I was watching last night. I was excited to watch UFC. And the guy was Cyril Gane versus the guy Rosenstruck. And, you know, these are both like potential. I mean, Gane's was only 7-0, unbeaten, 250 pounds. Rosenstruck's like 250 some pounds. I mean, there's a lot of firepower in there, right? A lot of firepower in the cage. I wanted to watch that fight. Free fight. I got ESPN Plus, like $7 a month, right? Yep. So when I watch the fight, the problem with it is, and I want to talk about it, I don't want to be a hypocrite. I don't want to be an armchair critic, but there's so much in this that's coachable and applicable to all of us. There's that fight last night, which was a snoozer, which was boring. It has so much resonance, so much applicability to all of us in our life. It really, as I was watching, I was like, wow, this is a great metaphor for life. There's so much that carries over and crosses over into life, and the psychology, you know, the mindset that we have, that's either a winning mindset or a losing mindset. And for instance, Roach, I'm not picking on Roaster because we've all been him before. I've had matches, especially when I was a purple belt. I was very conservative. I was trying to win on points. A lot of my purple belt competition career, I was content to win on points, 2-0, 4-0, 5-0, 7-0. I played that way for a lot of my purple belt days. So I've done the thing. I've done the holding back thing. But I'm watching Rosenstruck, right? A guy is a top 5 heavyweight in the UFC. Tremendous power in both hands, big puncher. And all he did for 5 rounds was sit there and wait to counter, and he never went for it. He was hesitant. He didn't want to lead. Even when it was obvious he'd lost 3 rounds to nothing, Gane is out-voluming him. And it's clear, you go back to your corner. It's like, look, if we want this fight, we got to step up. We got to take chances. We got to be more aggressive. We got to come forward. And what was clear about that to me with the big lessons, the big takeaways is like, we have to ask ourselves, I understand that, like, hey, Frank, these guys are fighters and the human brain, and, you know, they're getting punched in the head. Easy for you to say. I understand. By the way, I've been punched in the face many times, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of times. So it's not a foreign concept to me the way that it is to say Stephen A. Smith on ESPN, right? It's not a foreign concept. I've been punched in the face, okay? Hard. I've been knocked down from a punch before. But so I understand, like, hey, you know, it's easy for me to say that. But the reality is you're in a sport where you're trying to be the best you can be. And when you go back, let's say round 4, you go back to your end of round 3, you got 2 more rounds left. And it's very clear that what you're doing is not working. You're not going to win this way. You have to change it up. And when you can't be aggressive, and you can't get yourself to take risks, and you can't get yourself to go for it, and you can't get yourself like Misha Tate did against Holly Holm, like, I'm going for broke. It's now or never. I'll take the risk. If I get knocked out, I get knocked out. I'm going for it. That was her mentality against Holly Holm in the 5th round, 2 minutes and something left. I'm going to go for it. If I get knocked out, I get knocked out. We didn't see that in Rosenstruck. We did not see that at all. There was hesitancy. It was like the mindset was, hey, rather than being victorious and everything that comes with it and trying to get a title and being the best I can be, that's the most important thing is for me to survive. The most important thing is for me to survive and not go to the ER. Now, that is the way most people think, Noah, so it makes sense to us. But that's not the way if you're going to be an elite fighter, if you're going to be a champion, if you're going to be the best. That's not the way you can think in this sport. That's not how it works. The way it works is you've got to want victory more than survival. You've got to want victory more than survival. You've got to go for it. And he didn't. And I felt bad for him because I like him. That guy Rosenstruck, both of those guys are gentlemen. And he's a very talented fighter. And he should have found out, like, just go out on your shield if you got to. Like, find out, can you get it done? Can you connect? And he didn't go for it. Contrast that with Pedro Munoz of Brazil, who's now fighting out of America, fighting Jimmy Rivera. We're seeing these calf kicks now, Noah. I mean, these calf kicks. Oh, my goodness. A lot of people are training him. Rivera is a hard hitter slugger, okay? He's talented. I think he beat Munoz the first fight. By the end of round one, in a mere 5 minutes, Munoz did so much damage to his leg. Like, it was like, I mean, Rivera could, by the end of round one, he could not plant on that leg. He was ginger on that leg. He was favoring that leg. He couldn't plant. He couldn't put the steam on the punches. He couldn't go for it. But this was the point I make with Jimmy Rivera. Jimmy Rivera pushed through a lot of pain. He finished the fight, and he did his absolute best. And he did leave it out there. He did the best he could under the circumstances. I saw the fighting spirit in Jimmy Rivera, like, wow. He went for it. He finished the fight. Like, he pushed through a lot of pain, okay? And a couple of groin kicks too. So I saw the heart in him even in defeat. There's nothing wrong. There's no shame in losing. But when we have a hesitancy in life, I'm not just talking about in fighting. When we have a hesitancy, so much doubt that we can't pull the trigger, we can't bring our finest self to the table. It was just sad to see. And I've had it happen to me too. So I'm not trying to be a hypocrite. I've been that person in my life before. I've been that grappler where I was more hesitant, or I wanted to be conservative, I wanted to coast. But in these situations in life, we have to look, just like on the mats, whether you're in a tournament, whether you're in a cage, whether you're in life, what does the situation demand? What does it take to make it happen? And sometimes it takes, you got to risk everything. You want everything, you got to risk everything. You got to be willing to get knocked out or get submitted. And I didn't see it in Rosenstruck, and it was a boring fight. Gane fought a very smart fight. I thought he was conservative too, but he fought very smart. I think Rosenstruck needed to do a lot more. He didn't. And I think that he's going to probably have to sit down with his coaches or a psychologist or somebody and say, I'm better than that. How do I get myself to pull the trigger? How do I get myself to go for it? How do I improve my confidence? Because I'm better than that. And I should have found out, I should have switched it up and went to plan B or plan C. I should have adapted. He didn't even adapt. He played it safe. He played
Frank,
to survive.
I got a question for you. Because I don't know if you saw the preceding weekend's fight, the main event. It had Derek Lewis go H-Town, and he was getting beaten up through those, and he was not going forward. He was not stepping forward, just like Rosenstruck, but his game plan is different. That was similar in where he was. It looked like he was being passive. He wasn't going on the offense, and he was a defense. However, Derek Lewis, in contrast to Rosenstruck, a tale of two fights, two different outcomes. And Derek Lewis was waiting. He was waiting because his plan was for that punch that he knocked out. He knocked out his opponent. I don't know if you saw that fight, and it was a good fight. I enjoy Derek Lewis's fights. I have in my plans to get one of his shirts. I really love the guy. He's just hilarious. He's a typical Houstonian. I just love him about that. But I want to say there is this also kind of a purple belt phenomenon? Blue belt, you're surviving, and a lot of jiu-jitsu players play the defense game, and as opposed to going for the submission all the time. And our friend Jordan's like, go for the submission every time. And you say you've held out on when you were a purple belt, you were a points player. That's something that I'm really wanting to bring forth in my own game, which is I want to be submission oriented. I'm willing to lose more matches because I am going for a submission as opposed to waiting for a mistake. Because that's always there. I think the default mode of jiu-jitsu is that it's always there. You always can look for that mistake. That's a skill that exists within you. So that's always there. Why not develop that talent of always going for the submission and improving on your offense. I've played this defense game for a number of years now in my own development, and it's just me being a kind of a big-bodied boy that doesn't want to, I want to conserve my energy, and I don't have a strong cardio base. Well, you're going to see, and I don't want to say too much about it, but we'll just say I'm going to take a different path. And I recognize through the glory of talking to you over a year now on these podcasts, and me stepping outside of myself, practicing that visualization technique that Sam Harris has about when you're meditating, don't look from your eyesight out, but look from the walls in it yourself. Look at the lookers, what he says. Seek the seer. And doing that, I see myself on the mat, and I want to rewrite the story ending. I'm going to rewrite where I'm headed with my jiu-jitsu journey, where I'm going for the submission. I have a strong offensive game, and so when you see me on the mats, it's going to be a finish. That's my takeaway. Tell of two fights, two different outcomes. How do you see Rozenstruik being different?
So we had made that comparison watching the fight last night that say Derek Lewis is very effective as a counter striker. First of all, I haven't seen all of Rozenstruik's fights, but in some of the tape I've seen of him, he is selectively a lot more aggressive. I mean, he's knocked out Dos Santos, he's knocked out Overeem, and I've seen him be a lot more aggressive coming forward. He's got a lot of power. He throws punches from different angles. You cannot be one. This is mixed martial arts. So it means when we say well-rounded, right? Takedowns, jiu-jitsu, Muay Thai, boxing. When we say well-rounded, we also mean if you're a counter puncher, you have to know when to not be a counter puncher anymore. Like Dustin Poirier knows, he adapts fight by fight. He didn't fight Conor the same way the second time. He chopped him down, with the calf kick. So you can't just be one thing where Lyoto Machida was a counter striker, but eventually people figure you out. You've got to have a part of your game that's a blitz game. That's like, hey, because if you have two counter strikers, they'd be the most boring fight on the face of the planet, right? I mean, so you got to know when do you lead. You got to have both. You got to know how to fight going forward. You got to know how to fight going backward. You got to know how to fight east-west, side to side. That's part of evolving. So Rozenstruik has a lot more of an offensive go-for-it gear than I've seen Derek Lewis. Now, Derek Lewis is, first of all, a bear. He's a bear of a dude. I mean, that guy looks like he easily walks to me at like 280, 285. Like, he's carrying a lot of mass. Rozenstruik, who's not like a fashion model or anything, but he's 252, I think, but he wears his weight a little better, actually. He does. I mean, Derek Lewis is like, you can't have like high, Derek Lewis is not going to outvalue most guys over a 3-round fight. He's got to sort of pick his spots and be that counter guy. But the thing with Derek Lewis too is, I'll say that I've seen that's phenomenal for heavyweight. He does have great timing. He has great timing. He's very patient. And he has great timing on his counters, man. And he has, my God, now this is one thing I'll say though about Blades in that fight. I mean, that's a fight. I don't mean to pick on anybody because I'm sure Blades is a great guy, right? He was the favorite there. That is a fight that on paper, when you look at the skills, Blades should win that fight, man. For him to lose that fight, it's like there's just a lot of gaps, whether psychologically or skill-wise technique. It's like he's not nearly, the whole is not equal to the sum of his parts. He's got the parts, man, to be phenomenal. So he's, with all due respect, man, but like I see Blades as like underperforming. He's got so much room to improve. Like that's a fight he should win. Let me give you one example like that he did that was just, I'm sure he wishes he could have it back. It wasn't smart. When he shoots on Derek Lewis and gets hit by that like uppercut with the kitchen sink. So that uppercut has, punches start at the ground, right? So punch starts at the ground. It works its way up from your foot all the way through your leg to your hip, to your back, to your shoulder. I mean, bro, he gets the kitchen sink behind that uppercut. And
Yep.
why is he able to time the uppercut? Because Blades doesn't set up the takedown with any strikes. He just lowers his level and shoots in.
This is true. I remember that.
Not only does Blades not set it up, like GSP would always set that up, right? Like a good fighter will always, you got to give him something upstairs and or get them coming forward or get them to punch and then you go. There was nothing intelligent about it. He didn't set it up off making Derek throw. He didn't set it up with punches. He didn't set it up early in the fight. And not only to make it even worse, not only does he shoot and not set it up, but he shoots to Derek Lewis's power hand side. So his head is to that side. If you're going to shoot it, you want to set up on top and put your head to at least his weaker hand side. Like he could. That was the side where Derek was holding his hand low. He was holding the hand lower the whole fight.
Yep, so he was. It was telegraphing it the whole time. He was like looking for a target. Yep.
You cannot shoot. If you do shoot, you cannot shoot your head to that side. You cannot do that. So it's one of those things where you're watching. I'm sorry, I don't mean to be the armchair critic, but it's like,
he knows now. I'm sure he knows now.
Derek Lewis, but I'm like, my goodness, it was like, this is a guy that should have won that on points. Has it in, Volkov or whatever, who fought Derek Lewis too. He's winning late in the third round. It's like he could have danced and been methodical. Instead, he's throwing knees and like he's trying to finish Derek Lewis. Stupid. And then Derek Lewis knocks him out late in the third. But this is another difference too, Noah. Rosenstruck was in a 5-round fight too. So a 5-round fight usually has a lot more room for strategy than a 3-round fight. A 3-round fight is tricky because a 3-round fight, let's say you have a close round 1 and you don't even know who won it sometimes, right? The first round, you're like, we don't even know who won that one. The second round, maybe you think you won it. Now you go into the third round and it's up for grabs. So it's a little different, like a 5-round fight, especially later in the third round, like it's clear if you watch that fight last night, like, bro, you're losing. Like, you have to take some chances. And even if it was Derek Lewis, if I was Derek Lewis's coach, even though Derek's a phenomenal counter striker, he's got power, he's got great timing. It's like at some point you've got to go for it. You've got to come forward. You've got to go get him. And that now, by the way, even though Derek is a counter striker, I've seen Derek go after guys. I've seen Derek with urgency. I've seen him do it. So he will come after you to get it done. He's not a high volume guy, but he will come after you. But anyway, Rosenstruck, I would just say that, like, again, that's all of us at some point. It's all of us saying, like you were saying with jiu-jitsu, to drive it into our terms, why am I so hesitant? Why do I lack confidence? And how do I conquer it? Because there's no way, if you're not a confident grappler, you are getting pennies on the dollar for your potential. You're going to get pennies on the dollar. That's why Gordan Ryan, part of the reason that Gordan Ryan is so phenomenal, bro, he's the most confident guy out there. It's not just that what comes first, the chicken or the egg? What comes first, the confidence and then all the techniques and all, or just all the techniques and then the confidence? I think they both feed into each other, but this guy's confidence is leading the way. His confidence is leading the way to where he's telling his body and everything else and his IQ, you need to solve these problems. You need to finish. He's setting the expectations. We go as far as our faith and our expectations take us. We go where we follow our ideals. If you have low ideals, you're going to underperform. If you lack confidence, you're going to underperform. If you don't have high expectations, you're going to underperform. And that's what I saw with Rosenstruck. That's what I see with a lot of us. And that's why we say fighting is 90% mental. It's like, how do I go for it? And like you were saying, part of the way you go for it is you just go for it. And you just don't worry if you get tapped in training or whatever. You figure it out. You trust that over months and years that you're going to come out ahead. You got to trust in the long term, just like you in the financial industry. It's a long-term game. It's a long-term investment. Over the long term, with that confident mentality, you will come out ahead. You will climb higher. But we're so worried about the short term of, my ego will get bruised today. I will get armbarred a lot today. Somebody will tap me today in practice and brag about it, whatever. And we're so worried about that in the short term that we compromise and hurt the long term, which is, I don't care if you catch me today. I need to be confident. And if I'm confident over months, over years, I am going to start to reach my full potential or get closer to my full potential. There is no full potential achievement without the confidence. We go as far as our confidence takes us. It's that simple.
So at my age, for me to have a competitive career, starting, I'm turning 49 in 2 months. So
you and I both. You and I both.
Yeah. So I've got some ground to make up, and a lot of my efforts are going to look foolish because they're like, well, why did you put your, blank out there, whatever it is, why, and all I'm going to keep saying is I'm playing an offensive game now as opposed to defensive. I'm not looking for mistakes. I'm looking for breaks, and those breaks I've got to make. I got to make those breaks. I've got to, I've got to push the situation forward. Frank, what are some of the keys to success for me? Whenever, as I'm seeing, I have to go from a reclining posture to a forward posture psychologically, and how I can go from a waiting for a mistake to an offensive player. What are some of the keys to success that you recommend that I follow, and that the everyman can follow?
You're already, listen, you're a guy, I don't know another podcaster out there probably in this space, in the martial arts space, that probably reads more books than you. I don't think that, between books and audio books, I don't think there is one. I don't think anybody out there is reading.
I do a lot.
On a wide variety. So you're a very well-read guy. You're a hard-working guy. I know you're working your butt off right now, 70, 80-hour week. You're working your butt off.
Thank you.
So you've got a great work ethic. You've done very well in your industry before. So I've always told you, I think you're a Jedi. But life happens. Life happens to us all, especially 2020. Life is happening to us all. And so the place where it starts, and I have it here, and I carry it everywhere I go. I carry it in the bathroom. I carry it to the gym. It's beside my bed at night. And it starts with the pen and pad. And you're already doing it, but it starts with pen and pad. Write it down. Write down the kind of grappler you are, not you're going to be. I am today, right now. This is who I am, starting right now. Okay?
Oh, you mean just find out where am I right now? Like just an authentic snapshot.
No. Begin with the end in mind. You tell me right now the grappler you want to be, that you are. And you just
such that I am.
And you tell yourself, I am that grappler today, right now. It's not a 5-year thing. So it starts with, begin with the end in mind. I already know, where am I going? I have to have the goal, whether it be you want to weigh 185, whether it be you want to up your submission rate to 50%. I want to start finishing. I want my rate to be 50% of every roll and practice, whatever. You have to be very concrete in those goals, and they have to be written down. And a lot of times what I'll do is I don't just write them down once. I write some damn things down almost every day. And you'll be like, well, hell, you read my journals. You'd be like, didn't he write that yesterday and the day before and the day before? Mm-hmm. Yeah, I did.
So write it down.
I write it down. Okay.
Write it down, and not write it down once, but revisit that writing it down. Okay.
If most people can't write it down, they can't visualize it. If I can't write down 185, then I'm probably not doing a good job of visualizing 185, right? If I can't write down world champion, it needs to be cemented. So number one, I would say, is just, if people are serious, people who are serious about things, this, they write things down. Write down, where are we going? And then when we write down where are we going, we start to assume that it's true today. So once I write down where I'm going, I make the assumption that I'm there today. Now you could say, well, Frank, you're not even in that good a shape. I understand, but I would, if my goal was to be world champion, I would start carrying myself like a world champion today. I wouldn't wait to be world champion to carry myself. I would say, what would a world champion do? Well, he'd get his ass out of bed and drive across town and get to practice on time, right? That's what he or she would do. So if I write down world champion, that doesn't make me a world champion today, but I'm damn sure going to act like it. I'm going to do the things a world champion would do when I go to eat, when I go to whatever. So it really starts with a very clear idea of, this is the weight I want to be. This is the kind of, I want to be a finisher. It's writing down and knowing I am not, when I say I want to be a finisher, I am a finisher. I am a finisher is going to get me more finishes today in practice than if I think I want to be a finisher. I will be a finisher.
Okay.
Okay.
So that's writing it down and transformation of your mind. That's the first one.
That's right there. So that's a big thing. The other thing with confidence is, I think Rumi said it the best. You know, the great Lebanese poet who I read. You know, I love his stuff. Assume the world is rigged in your favor. Just assume that the world is rigged in your favor. Like, assume that it's like, this has all been some game and it's all in Noah's favor. It's all for Noah's gain and Noah's glory. And when you assume that, the thing that I do, Noah, that helps me, and I'm not saying this is for everybody, but on a spiritual level, I assume, I think I lived before. So people say I'm crazy, but I think I lived before. I think you lived before. And I think I chose to come to this dimension, this particular dimension on earth. I chose this life. So when I assume that I chose this life,
that's cool.
When I assume that I chose to be here, I chose to be in inner city Baltimore. I chose at least 11 schools in 12 years. I chose for my dad not to be around. I chose my mom. I chose that for the experience. Guess what? I can't be the victim then. I'm grateful. I'm naturally grateful because I'm saying, hey, Frank, every time I want to blame someone, I'm like, hey, Frank, you chose this, buddy. You signed up for this. You were enthusiastic to go, let me do that one. Let me take that one. Let me take that assignment. Now, whether it's true or not doesn't matter. It works for me, right? It works. It's a good perspective for me rather than feeling sorry for myself and poor Frank in inner city Baltimore and all the hard things he saw and all the challenges. So that's one thing. When you start assuming that the universe is rigged in your favor, one thing, final thing, because we don't have time, we can go through this another time. 2020 and 2021, these are hard years. I've never had more friends than in the last, 15 months or so, reach out and be like, I'm lost, I'm depressed, I'm bummed, I'm broke. I've always been the guy that a lot of people have turned to over the years. I've had a lot of that. I've never been bombarded more by that than the last 14, 15 years by friends doing that. So when we start talking about now, the trick is we all have to remember, man, like, you get to choose glass is half full or half empty. The power of choice, like Viktor Frankl would say. You almost have to be a little bit dumb to not get caught up in all the negative and think the world's going off off the tracks and the chaos and all this crazy stuff. You just have to really, this is what I do. I just remind myself there's still a lot of good people left in the world. There's still a lot of good places left in the world. This sort of stuff's been going on forever. And I choose to focus on the good things that I'm doing. I just choose to focus on that more. I choose to if I let myself focus on all the negative out there, you'll drive yourself crazy. It'll be never ending. You can just be on your phone all day. Negative, division, hate, people trolling you. I choose what I focus on. And I try to focus my energy on things that make me feel good. And however much time I have left, even if I only have a week, I'm like, I choose to be positive. I choose to live fully, to take great care of myself. I just choose that, and that's what I focus on most of the time. And if I take my eye off of that and choose to focus on the negative and all the division, you'll go crazy, man. You have to choose your focus. Even when the storms are there, even when the world seems like it's going crazy, you have to choose. If you're on those mats and the world's going crazy, guess what? For the time you're on the mats, all's well in the world. The world's not crazy. If you're out in the sun and you're up in the mountains and the world's going crazy, the world ain't crazy for you. Be one with that mountain. Be one with that sunrise. The world's not crazy there. Be fully present. And most people, if they were fully present and focused on where they are, they'd realize the sky's not falling in. The sky's only falling in when you go on your phone or you read a story and the sky's falling in.
But a lot of doom scrolling.
A lot of times right where we are, like you and I right now, is the sky falling in? No, it's not. If you and I went to eat dinner, we're talking about Brazilian steakhouse. No, it's not. Most of our lives, if we choose to, it's like the sky's not actually falling in. It's what we choose to focus on. Mm-hmm. So that's the key thing, is always remember, you get to choose your focus. And when you're out walking in the sun, you don't have to think about all the things that are wrong in the world. Don't let that rob you. You can walk and be like, what a great day. Like, what a phenomenal day, right? Like, be fully present where you are. What you're going to find out when you're fully present on the mats, at the gym, at home, cooking food, writing, doing work you believe in. You know, what you're going to find is a lot of the world doesn't suck, actually. It actually doesn't. And these crazy things have been going on forever and ever and ever. And okay, but there's still a lot of good left in the world. So be fully present right where you are and enjoy it and milk it. Good, bad, everything. Enjoy it. It's just part of the ride. It's part of the ride, and it makes the ride fun.
Good stuff. You gave me 3 good points. Thank you. I don't think we can make it better than that. Let's just leave that as cherry on top. It's good talking to you this week, Frank. With that, let's get out and get some sunshine. I've been, on Sundays and Saturdays, I have my some data science and data analytics mentees. So I've been in front of the laptop a lot today and yesterday. So I'm ready to get up and get out myself. So we did it. I got 3 pieces of advice from you on how to convert all this into some positive energy, into some good stuff. So I appreciate your time today, Frank. You always bring a lot to the table. I sit back and I get to bask in listening to you, absorbing what you know, and I enjoy listening to someone else as opposed to me talking. It's actually pleasurable to hear that, to hear someone else's perspective. And I already know what's inside my head. I've already lived with myself for 48 years. I've already heard myself thinking my own pathways. So, and you like to share, and I think this is a great platform for you and I to share things with one another. You're right. Yeah, I'm a super geek on the audio books and reading. Super geek that way. It's sometime I got to pull you into my espionage and counterintelligence fascination that I've been that I've taken up.
Notice the facial hair. I'm gonna catch up with you. Are you gonna be jealous when I catch up with you and show
I gotta bring this one under control. I had that sheepdog now, and that sheepdog's like, man, that's getting too long for you. I got this shaggy dog.
The human sheepdog. You got the human sheepdog look.
Yeah, I know. Well, I got to let that gray come in a little more. That way he and I blend better. And he's turning out to be just a handful. Wonderful. He's got a personality on him. And still a little nippy, still a little bitey. And as far as, that's how he conveys play. But it's not harmful bites, but we just, we're having to temp that one out, with a lot of no's. I'm surprised you haven't heard in the background, you haven't heard someone in the house going, no. You think his name is No.
He probably thinks so.
Yeah, no, he's a sweetheart. I stop and, I tell him he's a good boy, and I stroke his chest. You can see when he's sitting there, he just, I don't know, his eyes kind of glaze over and he's just sitting there. Oh, this feels great. Keep telling me I'm a good boy. He just loves that. He eats out of, you can tell how in the present, he is. But it's a lot of work, Frank. I have to, my light went out here. I have to spend about 45 minutes to an hour every day just brushing him out. He doesn't shed, but I have to keep him clear of tangles. I don't want that beautiful coat of his to get matted, and then I have to shave him down. But anyways, that's all. I have a hairy dog that I'm compensating for shaving this part by having a hairy dog. And I want to keep him that way. 3 good points I got from you today. 3 good ones. Okay, write that stuff down that way, and write it down a lot, and work with that. And that falls into also, I mentioned it earlier, you are the superhero of your own story. So you have to remake that all the time. The more you open yourself to change, the more you will change. That's called vulnerability. Being vulnerable takes courage, but they have a dualistic relationship. Second one, what was the second one?
I am.
Well,
there's I am. There's write it down.
Yeah, I am and write it down. Kind of.
And then there's pretend the universe is rigged in your favor.
Okay? No, yes, and
then the other one I said is my mindset is I lived before and I chose to come down. That helps me because I don't feel like a victim. I own everything. I feel like, I chose. If you chose this, a lot of the people wouldn't be blaming others. People wouldn't be disempowering themselves. Like,
it's very empowering to say it like that.
It's easier to play the hand when you realized you chose it. It's easier to play a tough hand when you realize, I chose it, man. I chose this, and I chose it because it was going to give me some experience, some upliftment, some education. So I really believe that, by the way. So it works for me.
Yeah, I could breathe that in. I could, and literally, a meditational breathing practice is you breathe in, accepting that I chose this, because what immediately thought in my mind as soon as you said that was, so I accepted a challenge. And what does that mean to accept the challenge? Come on, Andre, accept the challenge. Galvão, accept that challenge. Accepting that challenge is a commitment to loving and living your life and making and engaging with it.
It's a commitment to growth. When you accept the challenge, the only guarantee when you accept the challenge, if you commit, is that you're going to be committed to growth. You might not have victory, but you're going to be committed to growth. That's the path. Commitment to growth means just incrementally accept bigger challenges. And growth is guaranteed in that, victory is not guaranteed, but growth is guaranteed.
Yeah. All right. Well, 4:30 Eastern, 1:30 Pacific, Sundays. Here, you and I, this channel, will make it happen.
All right.
Yep.
All right, buddy.
All right, man.
We're doing it. And the world is going to catch up eventually. We got something special going here. Nobody knows it, but one day the world's going to catch up.
Yeah, it's just a matter of time. We're getting better. You and I are incrementally getting better. I've got some ideas on how I want to do my studio now. I found someone that I like the way their studio setup is.
Okay.
And little things are happening, small things. All right, Frank, see you next time. Take care.
Enjoy that walk in the dog. Get that vitamin D.
All right.